Well, good evening everyone, and welcome to our second video in the series of calibrating and injecting exported files from Fly-Elise Calibration Pro into Immersive Display Pro. Okay, now I'm going to give you a bit of a look what software we're actually using, what versions, and also the computer that we'll be using, my main PC computer. So there's our specs. Now I use two of my computers. The second one I actually use to run my CDUs and the lower ECAS. So I use that. It's a pretty powerful computer. I use that for doing the calibrations, which we'll get into later on. But before we start all that, there's something that I have known for quite a while and didn't act upon. If you go back through my videos here, you'll notice that about 6 months, maybe 12 months ago, I started having a lot of problems with calibration, the actual colors between the three projectors. And I thought it may have been because my bulbs were getting low, but that didn't sort of, it wasn't feasible because I've nearly always run the three projectors together, so the chances of that happening were fairly slim. And even if I did, I might have had the center one on for maybe an hour more than the others, so it didn't really ring true, and I just couldn't understand how it could have got so far out. In actual fact, my center one was the problem. It was far too light. So I was getting all this new software together, and I thought, well, really I should start at the basics, and the basics are making sure that all those projectors are running exactly the same. And I did do this quite a while ago, and I was under the impression recently that I had done a full factory reset on my projectors. So I got up and I went through. Now, the little bugbear with the Optima GT1080s, and that is that these little remotes, of which I have my three here, one remote works for all three. So when you want to come and do adjustments, if you click on the remote for the menus, you'll get all three menus come up. So it's a bit of a touchy thing because they're obviously their infrared sensor for the remotes are basically at a very easily accessible place. Bit of a pain that they didn't change the frequency slightly on each machine so that you could have done each of them individually, but they didn't do it. So we are stuck with doing them manually, or another method which I used at another time was doing each projector manually, and the other two I actually pulled the power out of them. Not ideal, because really they should not be touched. Once your projectors are all set up, you shouldn't be moving around with them and pressing buttons and stuff like that. It can actually change your calibration and throw it out slightly. So I ended up basically doing that. What I did was I knew I was going to be doing a new calibration, so I wasn't worried too much. I got up on my step ladder there, and I started with my far left projector, went through, and unfortunately with the 1080s, there are a bunch of, well, there's four main, if we have a look, we'll have a look on this one here, there are four main sections, and then after that, you've got subsections within those sections. So you end up with a lot of different settings that you can have. And of course, this is where my problem lay. In actual fact, the reset that I was hitting was actually the lamp reset. So instead of having which these have got probably 50 or 60 hours on them, I'd actually hit the reset in there, and it was resetting that back to 0. It's a counter for the hours of the to keep track of your hours that you use on your bulbs, I suppose. So I'd been hitting that reset, and I wasn't actually taking the projectors back to a factory reset, which ended up being a little issue. So this time I went through each of the menus thoroughly, changed it to what I wanted it to. Well, first of all, I found that factory reset them back to 0, or reset the first one back to 0. Then I went through each of those individual settings and via their master section at the top. And as I was doing it, and because it's up on top of the sim, I was taking a snapshot with my phone. So when I got to the second one, I could just bring up the phone screen and know exactly what my settings were. I don't rely on my memory anymore with that many menus. It's just impossible. So I went through and set the second one up exactly the same, and the third one exactly the same as well. Lo and behold, when I turned it all on, all three of them came up exactly the same. So I have eradicated the issue now with that light balance in between, or the calibration imbalance that I had on the 3 projectors. So that's something to bear in mind before we go through and start doing any calibrations. For God's sake, make sure that you calibrate your projectors or bring them all back to a factory reset and start them all over again, and that way at least you've got a good starting point. So that's what I did. So then, as I said, I loaded up the brand new software, Fly-Elise Calibration Pro, which is at 3.0.5. I had a few issues with, and still have a few issues with the very latest NVIDIA drivers, which are 417.35. They do have a issue with the menu system, and there's a couple of guys mentioning this on the forums. It's to do with DX9, so you do have to go into the only in Immersive Display Pro. It actually changes the cursor, so you have to exclude DX9 in one of the sections of the Immersive Display settings to exclude DX9, and it should fix that problem. But the guys from Fly-Elise have already stated on the forums there that by the time the next version comes out, they will have corrected that problem. And Fly-Elise are issuing updates on a regular basis now, so and they always have. Okay, so section 2. What I'm going to do now is just start up my Fly-Elise Calibration Pro on this main screen here. So I keep it in my folder over here, Fly-Elise Immersive Calibration Pro. And now, as most of you will understand, when you set up Calibration Pro on your projectors, you need to be running the client software. So you have a client on your 3 projectors, and then that talks to the secondary computer, which is your server, and your server does all the manipulation. So in this case, this is our client on this main computer, the graphics PC, and on the server, and on the second computer, that will be my server. Now, prior to using this software, you have to install the Bonjour software, which is a one-off. I believe it's communication software that they use. So you have to go through that process. I'm not going to go through that. It's a pretty simple sort of installation. It's only needed once. Once you install it, it stays on your computers. And I believe you also need it to run Immersive Display Pro as well. So if you've used that before, it will already be on your system. So I'm going to go through now, and we'll just start up Calibration Pro. Now, what I've also done is, because I've been doing a few calibrations, I've actually just done a right button click, because we're using PCs of course, I've done a right button click and gone send to, on my client here, I've just gone send to the desktop. And by doing that, what I've done is set myself up a desktop icon. So hopefully we'll get this on our secondary, yes, there we go. Now you'll notice that it came on and then it went off. What it actually does is it actually it puts itself down in a minimized position after it starts. So if you go to your taskbar, which mine's up the top here, if I select on the taskbar, do a right button click and go show, it'll bring it back up again and we'll be able to see it. Now you can see on this screen that it's a client and it's not connected. Right, so if I had just started this up, now if I had just started this up, this is what it would have been displaying. No projectors. Now I've got a little issue here and I don't know whether I've found something or whether I'm doing this wrong, but I've already done this calibration and it works in utilising this particular way. I should check with Fly-Elise just to make sure that this is correct, but utilising 3 independent projectors off one computer, I found that the only way that this software works, the calibration software works, is for me to do a 3 by 1. So you want 3 projectors by 1, which splits them into 3, and then you have to go up and, sorry, they would have been like that, 3 projectors, and then I had to group them. So it's the very top menu, and it comes up and says the display grouping function should not be used to create wide grouped desktop displays. Well, I'm not using desktop displays, so I don't care about that. So I have selected group, and then I selected the 2nd and the 3rd projector and selected group. And then I've gone back and selected 3 by 1 again, and there are my 3 projectors. So okay, we'll leave that screen up there for the time being. We're actually finished completely with our center screen at the moment. So what we do now is start up our secondary computer and make sure it's running, make sure it's talking properly. Obviously, if you're using this in a network situation, it would be already set up, but you need to make sure that each computer is talking to one another on the network, and that they can see each other. Okay, so I have set up this camera so that you can see what I'm doing. So I'll be just standing behind it and I'll be telling you exactly what's happening. Now the Calibration Pro is also installed on this computer, so you can see it on the screen there, and I've done exactly the same, but instead of putting the client on the desktop, I've actually put the server on the desktop, because again we need the server, this is the server to manipulate the image from up on the main screen. So there's our server shortcut. So we'll double click on that. Again, this computer, you need to, oh sorry, I didn't do that correctly. Oh yes I did. This computer needs to also have the Bonjour software run on it as well. So yes, so we're going to look at that. Now we have a look, and we've got our first screen comes up here, and it wants to know, are we going to create a new project, load a project file, and here are our recent files. Well, we won't go through the recent files, we'll actually create a new project here. So once you select create project, it then wants to know what sort of project you're doing. Now these screens are all different from previous versions of Fly-Elise Calibration. So they've upgraded this a little bit, which is very nice. So the first thing you look at the top is whether it's a tiled or a stacked view of the stacked projector arrangement. So we are using a tiled one, so we selected tiled. Now depending on your screen in the section, you would select your own screen. Mine is actually a cylinder, it's a half a cylinder. So we select cylinder, and down the bottom there's this third section which says, are you mapping it on a camera or are you mapping it on projectors? So we are mapping on the projector. So once we've got that, we hit the create button on the far right hand side. Now you can see that this is, I'll just take this out to full screen now. This is starting to become a familiar screen like we had before. So we have our available projectors on the left hand side, and this is our main manipulation screen from within Calibration Pro. So what we need to do is go up to this section and say that we're going to have 3 projectors running off one screen. Also go in here and select, like we had in previous versions, what the projector's resolution is. So ours are 1920 by 1080 high def. So select that, and now those 3 projectors will come up with that. So what I want to do now is select the projector. So we double click on that, and it's asking me which one is which. So we want projector 1 for that section there. Go select. Automatically connect all projectors from this remote display. Yes, connect. Now all of a sudden it has automatically put all the displays on for me, so I don't have to worry about selecting the second one and the third one. If you have a look, it's got projector 1, projector 2 and projector 3 already up there. So there are our 3 projectors, and if you have a look in the background, you can see there is projector 3, there is projector 2, and on the other side is projector 1, which we can't see very well. So perfectly now, software is done, and it is ready to do the calibration. So we'll move into the next section of that. So we go up here and have a look. So our projectors are set. Now we go into our screens. This is how you set up your screens as it was in the previous one as well. You start at the very top here, your begin angle and end angle. So we're looking at a 180 degree screen here. So we're going to go -90 is our begin, and our end angle is 90. So that gives us 180. Now the second one that's very important is exactly measuring how wide your screen is. Now my screen is 4.8 meters wide, so the radius of that is 2.4. So put 2.4 in there. So now all of a sudden you'll get a representation of it on the screen down the bottom here. That is live, by the way. You can come down here using your mouse and move that around so that you can actually get a very good look at it. You can also zoom into it if you like. Now go down to the next bit here, your beginning vertical. So I have 1.6 meters on my screen, so I need it to begin at -80. And end at +80. So that is 1.6 meters high. Your center height, you can change that if you like. Mine is 0. The x-axis, you can change that if you like. I'm going to remain mine at 0 as well. And down the bottom here, which is very, very important, you work out how many columns and how many rows you are going to physically have on the screen to do your calibration. So if you go by what Fly-Elise suggests, they say 21. I found that for my purposes 22 columns is more suitable. So what I've selected here is columns 22, and rows, I found that I don't need any more than 6 rows. So I've selected 6 rows. So if you have a good look at the screen now, I have got 22 columns across and 6 rows up and down. And now it's already done all the working out for you. If you want to physically make, and I have done this before, a representation of the columns and rows, you can make a piece of cardboard, or I've made this out of MDF, and you can take these heights and measurements here. So the column length is 0.3427. So if you make a piece of MDF 340 millimeters wide, and the length is 0.2667, so 266 mil high, you'll end up with something like that. You could then, if you really want to, go around on your screen and use this as a template to make sure your screen is being calibrated properly. If you also want to have a look at the those measurements, you can also come in here and have a look as well. You can't manipulate that screen, by the way, but you can see I've got my main section in there, which is my main width of the screen is 4.8 meters wide, which gives us a radius of 2.4. The angle is 180 degrees, and the height of my screen is 1.6 meters. So all that is correct. So we've now basically set up the screen exactly how we want it. So we can go to our next section now, which is number 3, that's the views. And from here we have a view 1, a view 2, and a view 3. So this section here is very important as well, because it's how we set up our views. So our view 1, which is the very far left hand side, we go to this section here where it says begin the column. In actual fact, our beginning column is 1. And now these measurements I've done suit mine. I don't know if they will suit yours. So you'll have to look into it and go into this in a little bit more depth. My number of columns is 8 on the left hand side, so I select 8 in there. And the beginning row is 1, and the number of rows is 6. So you can see that it's populated this little screen down the bottom and shown me where my view 1 is. Now if I go to view 2, and remembering these are your projectors, so we'll go to view 2. Now we've got an overlap happening here, right? So I'm going to overlap by 1, which means I start at 7, because there were 8 columns there. Should be 7. And I've got 10 columns in the center. Again, beginning row is 1 and 6 rows below. So that's correct. And of course our third one, our view 3, we are starting at 15. And just like our first one, we actually have 8 columns. So if you put that in correctly, you'll see that it'll go all the way over to 22. Our beginning row is 1 and our number of rows is 6. So just making sure that that's correct, go back and have a look. So you can see there's 1, go to 2, it encompasses the ones in the middle plus an overlap on either side of 1, and 3 is the right hand side. Now I would suggest to everybody that make sure that you save your information on a regular basis. So go up to your file now and save as project to start with. put it in a safe place. So I don't know, maybe you put it on your desktop, make a folder, call it something, results or something like that, and then save it in there under a number or a name. I like to use dates, so I know where my last calibration was. So we're going to put the date down there today, which is December 22nd, and just save it. So now all that information that we've got up to this point has all been saved in a file. So we can now go on to mapping of the screen. So once we go into that section, you'll see that we have straight away our first screen has come up on the other side with the mapping calibrations ready to go. And if we do the same for the second one and the third one, we'll end up with the mappings for those as well. So you can see on the screen here, we have all the way through to 22 columns, and the screen itself, which is 6 high, and all that goes all the way around. So that's basically our main setup. That's ready to go now. We can actually start doing manipulation of the screen and get that how we should. Now, I'm not going to go into any really intricate detail about how to do that. It's pretty well covered in the manuals. One thing I will stress though is to make sure you make use of the auto map facility. Well, hi people, here we are back for our third section, which is going to cover calibration. Now I'll just get to and start up these computers again. So we want the client running on this one, which it is. That's on our main graphics computer, and on this monitor here, or this computer, I'm going to start up the server. Now I've already done a 99% calibration here, so I'm going to load it. If I go to my desktop, okay, so you can see that in the background all three screens will come up, and if we have a look, I'll just do a show on the projectors here, the grid. You'll see that we have in the background a pretty nice grid now. I just used the exact same method that I'd shown you just a minute ago, which was visually doing this and just lining it up by eye. You can see through the windows there, it's all the way around to the other side. And it's not too bad. In actual fact, for probably 90% of the stuff that you'll use in P3D, that's probably good enough. But I'll just give you a bit of a sneak peek at some of the other screens that are involved in this software for the use of your calibration. So we'd already gone through and set up our screens, as we said before. Hang on, I'll take this out to full screen. And there's our screen as such. So if we have a look at, we already know what those angles and everything are. There are 22 columns on the screen and 6 rows. So if we now go to our views, we'll be able to see it here again. Screen 1 here, screen 2 there, which has got the overlap on it, and screen 3 on the right hand side. And now if I go to the next one, this is where we do all our manipulation. And as you can see, so that's screen 1 or projector 1. Projector 2, even though it looks a bit wonky over here, actually I should take that one down a little bit. Yeah, that fits nicely over there. Now I haven't finished this calibration yet. I still have a few wonky bits left on the left hand side to do, but over on 3 here you'll see that it is pretty good. Now I'll just show you what happens here. Like if you had gone through and manipulated all of these, which you can do either mechanically just by grabbing it with the cursor there, holding down your left mouse button key and moving it, you'll actually move it on screen. So once you've got a pretty good merge and blend there, you go up to this button up here. It says calibrate. Now hang on, what I might do is just stop here for a second and I'll zoom this camera in so you can see a little bit easier what I'm talking about. You can see what I'm doing now. So as I said, the manipulation, you can just grab it by hand and physically drag it to the position you want to. Or you can use the keyboard shortcuts, which are holding down your control key and using the arrow keys to go left, right, or top or bottom. So as I said, once you've got the first section of your calibration done, you go up to this button up the top here that says calculate. And if you hit that, you'll notice in the background the screens have all gone black. It's doing a calibration, goes through all this rigmarole over here. And if we come up and have a look behind us, which you'll see on the secondary screen, or the inset, the picture-in-picture, we end up with a test pattern. You also have to, or you can manipulate your edge blend if you like from there. Get your edge blend just exactly how you want it. And then once you've done that, also go to your perspective. Make sure you've got your perspective correct, and that means ensuring that all of your just zooming in to show you what I'm talking about here, that these views encompass the entire screen. So you can see mine does. And once you end up with that, you have all your perspective done. Now, and also I can change the background here as well to give us our views. So if we go to the sphere, you can see that the background is looking pretty good, and of course there's the checkers, so it's another way of visually checking to make sure that you've got a fairly decent sort of calibration going. So, and of course there's the old tunnel, the traditional tunnel picture. Now if you are exporting these to P3D, and many of us would be, what you need to do is ensure that you have this asymmetric frustrums selected. So generically, or by default, that will be off. So when you start this up and come in here, you have to select the little X there, which turns on asymmetric frustrums. And once you do that, that will output the files in order for you to be able to use P3D. So that's all set now. Once you have a decent looking calculation done, then go over here and hit calculate the projectors, and it will do exactly as we've just said. So it'll bring up this view here. So we now have our finished product, if you like. We are at the stage where we are interested in exporting. Oh, by the way, if you also want to see all the different views, there's a section up here that says on projectors. So if we come up here and go to the first one, it's black. So you can select black on all projectors or any individual one. So if we select black on the right channel, there it is right there. If we select black on the middle, you'll see the middle go black, and so forth and so on. So that's all projectors black. If you want to identify them all, you can. If you have a single one that you want to select, you can. So this is just doing a graphical on the screen. So there's the markers for doing if you're using camera setup. Blobs, red blobs, also screen grid. So that's basically what you use when you're doing the manipulation and the calibration. Then if you go down, there's also the warped single view, so you can bring up the test pattern. Under the warped single view, you can also do a test grid, which gives you just black and white test grids, which is an excellent thing to do because it'll give you an indication as to whether all your lines are correct. You can also do the panorama, so this is a very good indication of what your finished product's going to look like as well. As you can see in the right hand side here, our merge is almost perfect. So that's that one, and then of course you've got all the different colors after that, red, green, blue and white. So if we go to white, you can see that. And then they've got the warped multi-views, which are these ones across the top here. So you've got the tunnel, the screen mesh, which is that one there. Again, that's another good mesh to use, especially with the red 0 in the middle. You can make sure that that's dead center in your projection. The cube space, which is quite good, and the sphere, again another really great one to make sure all of your settings and your levels are correct. And what else do we have? The checker pattern. So again, another really good one. So once you're happy with your output, we will go to the export section here. Click on that. Now I'm only going to be talking about P3D V4 here. So V4.4 is what I'm running, but anything from 3.3 up will be exactly the same as this. So there is no need for us to have a single frustrum, so you can turn that off. However, it won't turn off, so you don't have the choice of not outputting a single frustrum. So that one's dead in the water, you can't change that. You can actually turn off the multi. However, because we've selected in the screens before in the perspective, it's now going to give us that multi-calibration or multi-pro calib file, which is exactly what we use to input into our Immersive Display Pro. Now the rest of them, you'll notice that it says perspective frustrums are on for 3+3. So that's giving us a view group file, which is exactly what we need. So we do want that. But if you have an earlier version of P3D, such as V2 or V3, they used what they call the .fxml file, and you could have changed the .fxml file, so you can use that one. And then again, FSX, and the very first version of P3D V1 used a .flt file, so you can output to those. But today we only need the 3+3 file, the view group file, and also the multi-frustrum file. We get the single files with it as well. So we do not need any of the X-plane stuff. We do not need the DCS file, the DCS world file. We don't need a general frustrum, and we don't need any templates. What we do need to do is now come down to this folder here and make sure it's going to be output. So if you come across to the right, select where you are going to output these files to. So I've selected in my folder here, Fly-Elise, our results, December, which it is at the moment, and select there, select that folder, and then put an export file name prefix. So seeing as how today is December 25, Christmas Day, I've put the prefix deck 25. So when I export these files, and if I were to hit that button now, the export data, it will export all of those files which we've just talked about. So we'll go on to the next section, which is what we do with them, and we've already touched on this with our tips and hints original CD, but I'll show you exactly what we do with the finished files. Now I'm going to turn the video off, and then I'm going to go through, finish off the rest of my calibration here, get it absolutely spot on, and then I will output these files, and then we'll carry on the video as if I'd already done that right now. So I'll be back in a very short while after I've finished off my calibration, and we'll move on from there. So that will be the end of section 3. We'll start up next with section 4. Okay, so here we are back again. We're just about to export our files. I've finished doing the calibration. It's about as good as I can get at the moment, so I'll take that. So now what I'm going to do is hit that export button, export the data, and that, my friends, is the finished item right there. So we can now close this down. We can go to our folder where we output those files. So I'll go to my results, December results, and there are all of my files. So now I have to take those files and I have to put them into the other computer so that I can input the files. So it's up to you how you want to do this. You can put it on a stick. If you've got a proper network that's running, it's easy enough just to transfer them straight to the network. So that's exactly what I'm going to do. Bring up my network. There's my Big Huey is my main one. Users, public, and I'll put it in documents. So I already have a December in there, so I'll just delete that. And now I'm going to come up here, copy that folder, and paste it into so that there now has gone over to the main PC. We no longer need this PC running, so I can shut it down. And I'll reposition this video now so that we can see what happens on the main screen. We'll also have our picture-in-picture running so you can see a close-up view of what's happening as well. Okay, so now we have our exported results here in December 25, 2018. There's all of our information that we want, so I'm just going to cut that. Probably shouldn't, you should probably copy it, but I'm going to cut it in this instance and put it into my Fly-Elise folder. So there we have those results. I'll just bring that over so you can see that a little bit easier on the center screen. Okay, so we have a multi, and then we have our projector 1, 2, 3. We have a single and the view group. So we're not going to use a single. The single's only used if you use if you're trying to do a desktop. So we don't need that at all. We don't need this multi at the top here. That's irrelevant. What we need is the projector 1, 2, and 3 and the view groups. So straight away we're going to do a right button click and copy the view groups file. And now we're going to open up our PC that's running P3D, and we're going to go to the program data folder. Now the way you get to the program data folder, as I explained in the first movie, was you turn on in the views, go to options and select view, show the hidden files, folders and drives, and you select that section just there. Once you do, the program data will show up. So let's open up our program data, go straight to Lockheed Martin P3D, and if you scroll down, there will already be a view groups folder, file, view groups file within that folder. Now we want to overwrite that one because that's got the default 0 in it. So you can do what you like with that. I'm simply going to do a paste because our new file is not called view groups, it's got the prefix on it, so it's very safe to do that. So now what I can do is any number of things with that view group file. All I'm going to do is cut it and paste it into a folder that I previously made in this folder called new folder. And you can see that I've done this before. There's actually a view groups file in there. So we're now going to go paste, because ordinarily you wouldn't have a file in that folder anyway, and just replace the file that's already in there. So now within our P3D file folder within program data, we have got no view groups file. So our one that we just dumped in here, our deck Deck 25 view groups, just rename that, take the deck off the deck 25 off the front of it and just call it view groups, and it will automatically be set up for you. So we can now close that down. That's all you need to do with the view groups file, pretty simple. And now we have our projector 1, 2 and 3 file. So what we're going to do is go into our Immersive Display Pro. So we'll start it up. I'll just get rid of this. Okay, so what we're going to do now is do a double click on, single right button click on the first projector there, because I've got 3x1, and go to external calibration. So we're looking for a pro calib file here. And then all I'm going to do is direct it to my folder where I have my Fly-Elise results. So I'm looking for the Deck 25 2018, and I want Deck 25 Multi Projector 1. So I select that in the first one. It's going to say it's detected that we're on Windows 8 or higher, just go OK. Second one, do exactly the same. I select external calibration. I'll go to projector 2 this time, OK again, and the third one I'm going to select external calibration, projector 3, and OK. Now our projector images that we did within Calibration Pro are all input into Immersive Display Pro. Plus we've done our view groups file, so P3D when we start it up should be fine. So let's have a look at that now. All we need, before we go, it's always a great idea to hit the save button. Because you've changed your configuration, you need to save that config. So alright, we've saved that config. Now we can hide that file, and now we can start up P3D. So let's do exactly that. We'll probably come back in about 10 minutes and it'll have started. Okay, so P3D has started up, and you can see straight away from the opening of this screen that the aircraft is already bent, meaning that our calibration is, or our Immersive Display Pro is already working. So I'm not going to change anything here. I'm just going to go OK, and we'll let it load. So come back tomorrow. No, I'm just joking. We'll hang in there for just a minute or so, and we'll see if our calibration's correct. Okay, so we're up to 83%, almost there. And we're up to 100% now. We're just waiting for the last little bits to load. And voila! Absolutely magical calibration. Very, very happy with that. As you can see, it's almost perfect. The blends are very good up there. Could be a little bit better, but for a hand calibration, that's not too bad at all. I'm very happy with that. So that's about it, my friends. That's all we have for today. So hope you enjoyed this video. Please leave some comments down below, and happy Christmas, and we're going to have a fabulous 2019 in the sim world. So Frank Cooper signing off for 2018. Hope to see all my subscribers back in 2019. Bye for now. Oh, just before I go, I just remembered about a video that I saw just recently, all to do with Immersive Calibration Pro, and it was a tutorial. This is it here on YouTube, and the guy who does it, his name is the Back Bedroom Pilot. And after watching this video, I was so impressed. I mean, this guy is really at the top of his game, and yet there's been so few views on this. So I shot him off a message and asked him if he would like me to add a connection, or sorry, a link to his YouTube. So this is it here. I'll just... He calls himself the Back Bedroom Pilot. His stuff is absolutely fantastic. He published this on June of this year. And it's only had 396 views, which is quite amazing because it is such a fabulous piece of gear. He's a very professional videographer. And I've had a look at his site. I've subscribed to his site, and he's got some brilliant stuff on there. So anybody wants to have a look at that. This is specifically about inputting into DCS world. So if anybody's into DCS world, this is the guy to have a look at if you're using Calibration Pro and Immersive Display Pro. This guy goes through and shows you how to do it and then do the inputs into DCS world. So fabulous video, can't recommend it enough. Okay, that's all for now. Bye.